Welcome to the Chief Future Officer podcast. Today, my guest is Navpreet Randhawa. Navpreet is a CFO and founding member and head of subscription merchant growth at Minna Technologies. Navpreet, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Where are you joining us from, Navpreet?
Right now, I'm in London. I'm based out of London.
Oh, so nice. And how is the weather like? I'm assuming summer in full swing over there?
It's actually quite nice, right? We'll talk about it, but I'm a bit nomadic in my career. So I've lived in different countries. This is my fourth city, third continent. So when I moved to London, everyone spoke about how bad the weather is. It rains all the time. But from the last couple of years since I started living, it's actually not been that bad. But I came from Sweden. So before this, I lived 3 years in Sweden, and everybody told me it would be jet black. And it wasn't jet black, right? So coming from Sweden to London, I would say the weather improved, and it's quite nice this summer.
I've not been to Sweden, so I'm assuming the temperatures are starkly different between London and Sweden.
So I was in south of Sweden, so I was living in this city called Gothenburg, which is it's not that cold. It's windy, right? So I've lived in Chicago as well for some time, and it was really windy there. So it's not as windy as Chicago in winters, but it is still windy. For me, growing up in there from Delhi, I'm okay with cold, but I'm not so okay with the wind. So, but it's actually quite nice in Sweden. It's not as bad as people make of it.
That's quite an opposite because Delhi summers are like hot and dry versus London is definitely pleasant at this time of the year.
Yeah, but then Delhi has air conditions, right? And most of the European countries and cities don't have air condition built in, so they're not prepared for this heat. Versus in Delhi, you turn on the AC after 20 degrees.
Interesting. So you are the founding member of the company, started very early on. Talk to us about your role, what you do, and how has the last 3.5 years of the journey been at Minna?
Yeah, so the journey at Mina has been 5 years overall. I joined them in 2018. It came as just a quick background, right? I was started my career in banking in Mumbai, moved to Chicago with investment banking. Pretty early on, realized I want to be an entrepreneur. Started our own venture, raised a couple of $1 million. Didn't succeed. Did that for 3 years, and then had a short stint with the government of India for 3 years before deciding to go back to building something. So at that time, one thing that clicked for me, like a lot of reflections and learning from my first ventures. And for the next one, I realized that, I don't carry the arrogance. And this is my message to others, that you have to find something. If you can find the right partners who are already on a journey, that's equally good. So that's what I did. I came across this company. I was in Delhi and I found this company in Sweden, which was doing something which even my grandparents will understand, right? It was in subscription economy, helping consumer manage subscription in the banking app, and it clicked. And I spoke to the founder, and founder said, "Oh, wow, you have this experience of building a company before." They were like 10 people, no revenue, just an idea at that stage, some product. And I said, "Let's do it together." And they said, "But we need to raise capital, and you have been done banking before, you have raised money before, so why don't you become our CFO?" So that's how I got the title of Chief Financial Officer, and it's a completely different company to what I joined back in 2018. We had the high of high. We had 3 years of a lot of success, as any fintech had between 2017 to 20, with the open banking happening in Europe, right? So we did ride that wave, and then COVID hit, and I won't blame it on COVID, but we had 2 difficult years, which was general realization post open banking that the banking red tape turned into red carpet, and pretty soon banks realized that the red carpet is too much or too nice for the company. Then there should be a hard dollar return for all the partnership they did, and the business shifted for us. So we had a couple of difficult years, and now we are on the up again. So
Interesting.
really, we can carve out 3 different journeys within Mina for the last
Wow.
5 years.
So I'm really curious. So as a professional, were you groomed or did you train as a CFO?
No, I'm an engineer by background. I have an MBA in finance, right? I was in banking, so I was for the first 3 years. I did spend a lot of time with on the corporate finance side of things, right? And did my CFA and stuff. So I did have the education to do it, but I never aspired to become a CFO, right? And it was more that I understand finance, I understand business, and I understand fundraising, right? And raising capital and investor relationships. So all of that in combination, when I became a CFO, this was really the first time I had a financial title, right? So it was that you take the CFO role, and but it was about running the company. But if you focus in just on the financial aspect of the things, the CFO job and the responsibility that comes with the role, a lot of them were new. And get into my shoes, I moved to Sweden. I didn't even speak the language. So all the invoices that came in, all the contracts were in Swedish. And fortunately, everyone speaks English in Sweden, so that did help me. But I didn't have a controller. I just had very friendly Swedish people around me. Even developers will help me translate some of the invoices. So that part of the job I had to learn from scratch. But I understood the principles of finance. I understood how to run a company, and that helped me.
Very interesting. I have two or three questions, but I'm very curious about this one. So you mentioned the invoices are in Swedish. So if I'm doing, let's say, an OCR and running AI ML to automatically detect, is there technology for Swedish language that does it as, high fid it would do it for English language?
Yeah, so like back in 2008, like all of that exists, right? But still, when you get an email with a letter, right, saying, "Hey, you have to pay us this much in Swedish," right? And then there's an invoice, a paper invoice, which is either sent as a letter or an email attachment. So you're able to translate a lot of that, which is digital, right? But a lot of things in Sweden, like I come from India, right? And one would imagine India is a developing country, so quite behind. But believe it or not, everything is digital in India, right? But when I moved to Sweden, they still send letters, right? It's quite advanced, it's cashless and it's paperless to an extent. But for a lot of communication, right, they will still send letters and they will send it in Swedish, right? And that was a bit challenging, and for me to also learn the law of the land, right? Just to understand how it works in this country. What's the tax office? They call it Skatteverket. So I don't know what's that, right? Bolagsverket. So they had like this complicated. For me, it was like new country, new rules, new setup altogether. The only thing I knew and carried with me was my ability to run a company, understand what is required to build a company, scale a company, the principles and concepts of finance, because spent a lot of time in banking, which drills you, and I had education. But the hardcore job of the financial management of the business, that came new to me in a new language, but with helpful people around me.
Very interesting. I'm assuming then the software stack, and I'm just going a little bit deeper into the technology, the software stack which typically gets used in the United States is not the same in Sweden. Different thing for accounting, different for
Yeah.
invoice and AP automation and others.
Yeah, exactly. So I cannot comment on what's in the US, but in Europe, like there are a lot of bunch of companies, especially in Nordics, which enable it, like which makes your job much easier. So I call it like CFO suite, right? So one thing I realized pretty early on that okay, my vision of finance in Mina. And I think it was a blessing that I did not carry some kind of a background on how to run it. So it was quite fresh for me. So I realized that, okay, I don't need people. I don't want to build a finance function. All I need companies and partners who are experts and subject matter experts. So I came across this company, which I've been a big advocate of in Sweden, is PE Accounting. And they had this platform, which was amazing, right? It was tech enabled, and they will process all our things and put it in right format and like do the right distribution, like all the right things that you need to do as per the accounting principles. They did all of that automatically, and all we were left to do was a ensuring they've done it well, and b assessing and analyzing, right? So I did spend like first couple of years when money was tight, right? Obviously in a startup, I did it without a controller. When we got the luxury of hiring, then we got one controller in. So if you look at today, roll forward 5 years from now, I have like I don't know, 6 or 7 tech companies who are supporting us, whether it's equity management, whether it is invoicing, whether it is expense management, and all of these, whether it's cash flow forecasting, all of these, we have third party partners and fintechs who are helping us with doing all of those things. And I have 2 people in my team
Wow.
managing 5 different geographies. So India, UK, Romania, US. I'm sure I missed Sweden, of course, right? And both of them are based out of India. So
Interesting.
2 people and myself, and I hardly spend any time in accounting side of things because those guys manage it in support of third party vendors and partners.
Very interesting. I want to come back to some of these challenges around it in a bit. But when I hear about Minna, talk to us. What does Minna do? How has the business been so far?
I can take the whole podcast away and talk about Meena. That's how interesting it is. But quick version is that we help consumer manage subscription. So number of subscriptions are increasing. People are paying for things they no longer use. Subscriptions are like your Spotify, Netflix, Disney Plus. It also includes your utility contract, your insurances, right? So if you look at a normal person, it's like 10 to 15 subscription. If you look at a household, it's 20 plus subscription, and all your subscriptions are scattered, right? You sign up for subscription on your app stores, Apple and Google. You physically go to a gym and sign up for a subscription. You have subscription of softwares on your laptop. But no matter where all your subscriptions are, you're paying for it using your bank, right? So whether it's an Apple Pay or Google Pay, it is still your bank which is paying for it, right? So what we've done is we realized the opportunity that the number of subscriptions are increasing, and there's a subscription fatigue, there's a subscription trap, and people are struggling to manage it. But we found an interesting twist to it, which is that instead of creating a standalone application for people to download one more application, you we position bank as a super app. So all your subscription that are being paid using the bank, you can go into your banking channel, find all your subscription at one place and manage them. And by manage, we mean like, one click cancellation. So if you have Spotify, you don't want it, cancel it. You're going on a vacation, you want to pause a subscription, just pause it. So we build that connection between the cardholder or a consumer with the merchant, which is a subscription provider, in your banking channels.
Very nice. And I can see that at our home as well. My kids, they would subscribe. Sometimes the ease of use of
Yeah.
Apple is not a blessing because it is just 2 clicks or the click on the side, 2 clicks, and then you're subscribed until you figure out, oh, I'm not using that, and it should be canceled. And apps to streaming services to gym, as you name it. Now, very incidentally, I'm a founder of a company called Quolum. We do this for businesses.
Yeah.
So we look at your Slack, your Jira, your Figma, your Zoom. Would love to chat and exchange notes on that topic when I hear more from you later. And how has the adoption been in the last 4.5 years, 5 years you've been with?
Yeah, so we've sold to over 10 plus banks in Europe, and
Oh, so
mostly.
it's a service on top of the bank. You don't go out and acquire customers. You give it
No,
to the bank.
it's a bank integrated solution. We are not a direct to consumer solution. So instead of, like, there's a company called Rocket Money slash Truebill previously.
True bill, yes.
Yeah. So which is a direct to consumer approach. It's pretty similar to that, but it's bank integrated with what I will say much superior technology and compliance. So instead of directly acquiring consumer, we acquire banks, right?
Hmm.
And if, for example, Lloyd's is one of our customers in the UK, it's one of the biggest banks in the UK. So if you're a Lloyd's customer, you can go into your Lloyd's banking app. You can find, if any banking app you go into, the first thing you see is your account balance. And underneath your account balance, you see transactions. So what we do is any transaction that is recurring in nature, we put a button called manage. So basically you can manage your subscription right from your banking app on the first place. So it's a bank integrated solution. We are a white label solution, so you will never know it's us, right? Or unless you are reading the asterisks or notes below. So it's, at the end of the day, you say you're grateful to your bank for managing it and enabling you to manage or stay on top of your financial health. And banks are facing a lot of cost and disputes because of this subscription traps where people, sons and daughters, sign up for PlayStation, the parents are paying for it, and then they call the bank that, hey, they don't even have the password, so stop the payment. So that's becoming a huge cost burden for the banks, and they realize that the direct debits are going away, and subscription is the most frequent spend that is happening. So for them to stay relevant in the day-to-day financials of the consumers, they need to have an offering for subscription, and that's where Mina comes in.
You guys are not launching in the US? Oh,
We
you
launched,
have.
yeah, we signed, I cannot disclose the name of the bank, but we signed one of the largest bank in the States, and we're already live. It's not 100% of the users, but it's already live and soon going to be live with all the customers.
Very cool. This is awesome. I was an early user of Truebill, but then, 5 years ago, the number of subscriptions are very small. Now it is almost 10 times of what it was 5 years ago. So absolutely relevant. So congrats on the win in the United States. I love to see it, one of the banks here announcing it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It was one of the biggest jump that we had. We have been selling to Europe. Like Europe, we speak of Europe as in one breath, but it's quite scattered. Like France is different from Germany, is different from Italy, is different from Eastern Europe, right? So we spend a lot of time in UK and Europe, and then we realize that the big market opportunities in the US, right? I often say that it's one of the world's largest market that you can actually monetize. Right? So it's so finally very pleased that we managed to crack this market.
Nice. I want to go back to your earlier comment. You mentioned you grew up in India, you lived in Sweden, now in London. In between, you mentioned Chicago.
Yeah.
How was the transition to these countries? And of course, now in London. So from New Delhi to London and in between.
Yeah, so New Delhi to I lived in Mumbai as well. So I was working in Mumbai and studying. I studied there. I was working there, and then from the job I went to the States, and I was in banking, so the job took me there. And when I realized that I want to build something, and somebody um, was there willing to invest in my venture at that time in 2014. So because of that venture, I came back to India. So the great American dream was shattered, especially for my parents, and came back and I was trying to build this company for 2 years, 2.5 years rather. And when that didn't succeed, I had a stint with the government and then wanted to build something again. And of all places, somehow I landed with this company in Sweden, which was pretty early on. So that led me to move to Sweden from back from US back to India, back to Sweden. And I've been with the same company for the last 5 years building this venture. And from Sweden to London happened for personal reason, right? I think it was 3 years in living there, and my wife said, "Let's buy a house." And that's when it clicked me, like, can I live here? and and I'm from Delhi, right? I've lived in big cities all my life, and when it's one thing to travel or have a stint, but to when you buy a house, that's when you realize that okay, you want to live here. And then I thought, okay, maybe it's best for me to move to London, which is um, I don't know how many people buy this, but I think New York or London or San Francisco is a lot like Delhi. It's like the big city vibe, and London is not so far away from India. Versus if I go and live in US again, it's completely opposite from my family. So that's the reason I ended up in London.
Well, I look forward to having you in San Francisco and maybe change your mind from
Yeah,
London to San
I know.
Francisco.
My wife keeps saying that we never know. We might end up in San Francisco if it's just up to me. Yeah.
The second point I want to bring back, you mentioned your transition from an engineer to finance professional, which is your MBA degree in finance, but then now you are a CFO. Is there a push and pull when you go from an engineer to a CFO role?
No, I think if you ask me like what did I do in engineering, I don't think I'm a great engineer. So let's just park that. But I think the underlying principle is like numbers and logic, right? So that stayed with me. That has always stayed with me, right? So and I think that's the reason I still do finance. It's because I'm just good with numbers, and that's what I've done all my life. And and CFO, as I've said it a few times now, like my core skill and my passion is to build companies, right? Solve a problem, build a company, scale a company, and that's my journey in last 10 years. That's all I've been doing. And I know finance, so wear that hat. I do talk to investors. I've raised over, I don't know, $50 million or plus in my career for my company. So I know that side of the thing, but it's not that I raise capital or I talk to investors. It's not just financials, right? It's very little financials. It's actually more business, right? Why should someone invest in a company? Like a lot of people think that raising capital is it's just about telling a story or it's just about numbers. Actually, raising capital, I always go out and tell people that you need to convince yourself. Will you put money in this? And the moment you are convinced that, okay, yes, you would do it because of X and Y, then you just have to find a scalable way of telling that, right? And most of the VCs are looking for, you need to understand what's in it for them. What are they looking for? And that comes with experience. You realize, like, how to tell a story, how to fit that story in terms of their plan as well, right? You can have a great story, but if the market is so small, no matter how much they love you, they're never going to invest because it just doesn't work. So I deviated a bit, but the whole point is that as a CFO, the core skill is still understanding of how to build company and scale a company.
I want to go back to your earlier startup,
Yeah.
and you did something. I want to know more what you did, and what was the key learning that you took away from that initiative, and now you're applying or not applying, you're
Yeah.
ignoring that in the current one?
Yeah, so a lot, right? It was quite hectic and demanding. Even this one is. When you sign up for a startup journey, as fancy as it sounds, this has been my life for 10 years. And I'll come to you. A lot of people say that, hey, I have an idea, or hey, I want to do something. It's a very strong commitment. A lot of time I'll see my friends or families and my peers who, get pretty much paid as same as me, or sometimes, or most of the time, a lot more than me, but working like 5 7 hours a day, having weekends off, traveling, taking vacation, right? And then you question yourself that, okay, wow, like I'm killing myself. It's quite demanding, 14 hours a day, and more than that, the stress that you carry of building something, right? Over a period of time, it's been 5 years at Mina, 3 years, 2.5 3 years in my own venture before this. So it's a huge commitment, and hopefully you have a payday, right? But it's not an easy journey. It's something that and your family sign up for. It's not just you individually that sign up for. So now coming to what I did, my company was called Health for Comfort. I basically spotted, I was the only founder. I basically spotted that the blue collar manpower industry in India is highly unregulated. So to make it much simpler, like cooks, driver, domestic helps, right? uh, it's everyone needs one, but it's quite unorganized. So typically when you need a maid or a domestic help or a driver or a chef or a waiter or a steward in your restaurant, it's word of mouth that was working, and people were not paid right wages. And there was also a price arbitrage. So just take an example of a driver in eastern part of India would be, I don't know, trying $50 a month, right? In a village in India, versus a driver in Delhi or Bombay in a big city would be $300 a month, right? Or even higher, depending on the scale. So, but the skill was the same, right? It was driving a car. But there's a price arbitrage depending on where they came from, right? So the whole idea was that to organize that industry, migrate people from rural part of the country, upskill them, and then provide employment. So we were 270 people that were running, because it was quite operational heavy business. We To give you scale, we used to have 2 to 3 thousand people turning up to my center on a daily basis to find
Wow.
employment. And it was like we used to run TV ads and to get people to call and seek employment. We had a database of 1 million plus people seeking employment. Then they will come, we will upskill them, and we used to place like 50 people a day, right? 50 employments a day. Like, it's crashed any skill development targets that the government had, right? Because it was pure. We did a simple TV ad. First, we did this fancy TV advertisement that, hey, we'll upgrade your life and all those things. Didn't work. We paid a lot of money for that advertisement, and then we did a much simpler ad in regional language in a local music channel, and said that, hey, if you want a job, call this. Period. Right? And we got like 5,000 phone calls a day for people
Ooh.
seeking job. And yeah, we did that for 2.5 years. We had a lot of leakages in this because the cost of acquiring these talents, cost of upskilling them, and then placing them. And then there was leakages because people were not willing to pay minimum wages, which was something against my principles and ethics of what I was trying to build. And a lot of time people will just quit their job. They will join, work for 5 days, and they will find the simulated environment that we had created in the training center much easier than the harsh real life environment. So we had a lot of leakages in this whole process where we were losing money. And but it was a fun journey. The key learnings I had was that I started across categories. So like domestic help, cook, drivers, when I could have just picked drivers, right? And if you look at drivers in itself, you have commercial drivers versus private drivers. You have drivers who drives a Mercedes versus a driver who drives a Suzuki or a simple car, right? So a driver who drives an automatic versus manual, driver who drives within a city versus intercity. So once you get into this, you realize that there are the nuances and the details that exist. So my key learning was to start small, right, and try to work out a model, right, that works, an MVP, that one category, start with few hundred people, try to place them, try to do that successfully before scaling across categories. So I have no regrets, to be honest. I was 24 or something, and doing this, it was quite fun. But I obviously have I spent a lot of money, my investor money. We spent around $2 million over that 2.5 years. So that those, of course, I wanted to make sure that I'm able to pay them back. That didn't happen, obviously. So those, and people lost employment, which was quite harsh. So I still carry that with me. Like whenever I'm hiring, I'm very particular that do I really need it? Can I support this employment for over next couple of years? Because I had to let go of those people one at a time, and I did it individually because I'm the one who hired them. So those were like some of the harsh things that you have to do in that journey and the learnings that you carry forward. I
Got it.
can I can go on.
No, I think I absolutely agree with you. These are the battle scars that makes the journey worth it, and you know for sure that whatever time you spent, that's the
Yeah.
learning you carry in the current one. How big is your current team at Minna?
So if we are close to 60-65 people across five different geographies, but much senior talents to what I had before. Very experienced people across different categories.
You mentioned something about, I think this was 2014, 2016 days when you had that startup and then finally decided to shut down. And this is a question which kind of confounds most founders. If you would have continued for another 3 or 5 years, do you think you would have had that, to use your word, payday and a desired outcome?
Yeah, so I don't think payday is the right word. Even though I'm very motivated by money, but uh, yes, I believe that like it's not the one. It's the one who stays with the problem longer, right? I think the one who succeeds at the end of it, and that's something I follow at Mina. We had ups and downs. Uh, just to give you an example, right? When we shut down Help for Comfort, the first day was a lot of. I was relieved. I felt like the world, the burden of the world got off my shoulder, right? And I did sleep. And then I woke up fresh, had my tea, and realized, oh, sorry for my language, but oh, fuck, like it's gone, right? At least I could have influenced it earlier, but now not anymore. It's behind me. So, and that's something that motivates me now at Mina. So when we have difficulties and challenges, I say, I get to do this. I get to do this. And a lot of time I'm talking to my peers and I tell them that consider this like a boxing match, right? Don't give up, right? One blow after the other, and the one who stays with the problem longer will solve it, will succeed. So for me, I've been doing this for, like, if you look at just the venture time that I've been doing, is 8 years of building company as a founding member or directly as a founder. And I think it's a lot of effort, and have patience, and listen to your customer, listen to your people around you. Not everyone, but listen to people who have been there, done that, and keep following one day at a time. It's going to be hard. It is hard. Not going to be hard. It is hard every day, but I believe the results come at the end of this.
Very well said. Did anybody had a lasting impact on your career, either your startup or early days as a undergrad or a grad student?
Yeah, many people had lasting impact. I One of my superpower is I can learn from people around me, and very good at I soak learning from other people, right? So that's one of my superpowers. But I think I'll give you an example. Actually, not from my banking. I keep like my wife would be sick of hearing this because I've said it a zillion time to her. But one of my colleague, even in banking, right? So this was 1 a.m. in the night, and I'm 22 or something, and we are working on this pitch that has to happen. And this guy is not much older than me, 3 years older than me. And we go down in India. You go down to have tea. This guy comes on a cycle to serve tea, and we are having tea just to take our 10 minutes break before we go get cracking on this pitch deck, which is very important. And one of my other colleague who's not working, he comes out, and he just happens to pass by, and he's with his couple of other friends, and they're going to have a house party or something. And I was like, wow, like, that was so attractive to me right at that point of time, that okay, I want to do this. And instead of working on this pitch deck, and I go to my colleague who was senior to me, I said, hey, listen, can I please go, can we finish this tomorrow? And then he took a pause, he went back, and then came back, and I hope he's listening. And then he said, go, but take this with you. In life, you have to take decisions, okay? And the and you want to be a CEO or a prime minister or a president or whatever, right? I know you have those ambitions, and in those positions you will have to take decisions, right? And why do you think you'll be able to take a right decision then, when you're not training yourself to take a right decision in these small movements? So if you take many small decisions right, you will have the muscle and the brain capacity to take the right decision when it really matters. But don't expect that you take a wrong decision now and then you'll be able to take a right decision at that point of time, at that point of your career, because you've never done it. You're not capable of taking a right decision. And that stayed with me. So I'm not sure if you find it that impactful or not, but for me, that was like, even 10 years on, I'm still talking about it. That's how powerful it is, that in life you have to take multiple decisions, small decisions, right? And that eventually puts you in a position that you can take the big decision, right? So it's kind of a muscle memory. I can give many examples, but that's something which came pretty early on in my career, that focus, hard work, taking the right decisions are very important, and you have to train your muscles.
I agree with you. I think it's very well articulated, because just like you go to gym and you train your exterior posture to lift up weights higher and higher, like from 25 to 250 pounds, same thing as you're describing, decision making, its own mental muscle that you're going to learn from the smaller decisions that you make. Absolutely agree.
I was speaking with one of my investor, right? He's an ex-entrepreneur, billionaire. So now he invests in companies, mentors a lot of people. And he was talking like, Navi, how are you holding up? And it gets hard, right? I remember in my first venture, I was the only founder. So there would be days I will just lock myself and like, I just don't want to go out. Like morning would be, you feel tired in the morning because so much struggle ahead of you during the day, right? And from that early phase of entrepreneurship to now, when you I think he put it perfectly, that the problems do not go away, right? As you scale, right? You're a 1 to 2 million revenue company, 2 to 10 million bucket, or 10 to 50 million. Problems don't go away. The challenges don't go away. It's just that your skin gets thicker. so you so you learn to deal with them, right? And how you carry yourself in those difficult circumstances is you learn that, and that's, I think, is only time can teach you, experience can teach you.
Very well said. So your job is intense, right? Because as a founder, part of the team, trying to acquire customers, doing sales, running a team, how do you manage it?
I think having perspective. I have a very good family support system. I try to work out, go for a run, and I try to keep a balance. So what works for me is and I'm not saying that's the right way. Okay. What works for me is that I start my day and I think of 3 or 4 things that I really have to do. Okay. And then I have accepted that I can't do it all. Okay. But for me, it is important that those 3 or 4 things which were key are done, and then I have to end my day, right? So that I go and pick up my daughter, I can have dinner together. Otherwise, I can do like there are periods when I have to, like I was in DC a few weeks back when I had to just drop everything and be in DC for like 3 weeks or whatever, right? And those are moments where you have to crunch. But if you take an average, right, I want to have a window where I cut off and be with my family, be with my friends, and not talk about it. But that's something that I've learned over time. Right, took me a bit longer than the others. In my first ventures, I don't remember talking to my friends at all. Like I literally cut off, which wasn't the right thing to do. But in this one, I did manage to keep a separation of, okay, this is my work. I'll do my best, and I accept that I have to do this much. And then when I cut off, it's also equally important that I go out. It's also equally important that once in a while I watch something on Netflix, or meet a friend for a beer, something like that.
As we wrap up our conversation now, Preet, one last question. In Silicon Valley today, we're seeing a lot of hype. I'm not using the word as a derogatory, but in a positive way. There's a lot of build-up towards what AI can do for us. Are you seeing something similar in UK, in Europe, in Sweden and Nordics?
Yeah, everywhere.
It's real then.
We're seeing it in India as well. I was speaking with someone today that I think it's Bank of America, which said that, or Goldman Sachs, one of the two, right, that no to Chat GPT, like not use it at all. It's slightly different for us because we are a bank integrated solution, so compliance is at the core of it. But when we discuss it, like I speak to my colleagues and my teammates, and I say that, hey, listen, we have to learn to work with it, right? Because otherwise we'll be left behind, right? If you're not working with it. I have a lot of companies that don't want to promote others, but other companies in our space, especially direct to consumer, you have a lot of freedom to do things, right? So which uses a lot of AI. We use a lot of ML. I won't call it AI, but like if I talk purely as a professional, not as an entrepreneur, as a professional, I think you need to learn how to work with it, right? I'm learning, I'm trying to cope up, right? But if you don't, right, you'll be not left behind in a year, but in 5-7 years, you will have people who are much faster skilled than you are, right? And as an entrepreneur, your company would be left behind if you're not keeping check, because things are changing thick and fast. So I'm not worried about it. I think it has accelerated, and then we just have to cope with it and learn on the go and enjoy.
Navpreet, thank you for your time. Where can people find you?
Where can people find me? I'm actually, to be honest, I'm not easy to find because I'm so occupied building this. But if there is genuine interest to reach out, purely from the point of view, especially if you are a scale up and you want to have a conversation about, some of the challenges that you're facing, whether it's fundraising, whether it's about building company or entering a US market or customer, that's where I can add value. If you're an early stage entrepreneur, I don't think I can add that much value, or I would not have bandwidth to add that much value. So to find me, it's LinkedIn. Navpreet Randhawa on LinkedIn, or you can look for Minna Technologies, and you can find my profile. You can also email me. It's my first name 31 at Gmail. So that's another place you can write to me. But I can only respond if I feel that I can contribute in your journey.
Super. That's awesome. That's Navpreet, CFO of Minna. Navpreet, thank you. It was a great pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Chief Future Officer Podcast. The Chief Future Officer Podcast is brought to you by Quolum, a CFO's best buddy to buy and manage SaaS. To support this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to us on your preferred podcast application. Links to previous episodes and the rest of the show notes are in the bio, and I'd love to have you check out other episodes. Lastly, if you want to be on this podcast or recommend a friend, let us know in the comments below. Thank you.